Hello and welcome. I am No Coffee, No Life. We are now officially in the most wonderful time of the year, which is October. And with October, we have spooky camps. This week we're building in the forest, and there are a lot of creepy places here. This spot is located right behind Vault 76 and just west of North Kanawha Lookout. Now we're going to be building at this creepy shack underneath these big trees which shade the area. This spot has a particularly cool beat down shack that we can use to make a creepy cabin, and there's also a second location behind it. I say cabins because there's actually two spots here to place a building. This is the first one, and you can see it's a kind of ramshackle shack. It's cluttered with a lot of really cool stuff. And this second location just out back. So let's get started, shall we? On to cabin number 1. This is going to be the first cabin we work on, and it's the one with the least amount of structure that we have to deal with. We just have this wall and some other things in the area. What I'm doing here is I'm lining up these foundations so that I can place one directly in front of this wall where it's clear and line up a doorway with this pre-existing doorway that's kind of run down and broken. And you can do it. You just have to have a little patience and, adjust things so that they're centered and not forget to do that. I've got it where it really needs to be, almost. It just has to be adjusted a little to the right and it'll be good to go. So we're going to take down this wall and this foundation and adjust that foundation to the right so that we have everything in place. Now we'll replace this foundation and get them lined up the right way so that that center line is going horizontal to the door. Get the other two foundations down and, oh look, we can't place this one. How kind of you, Bethesda. We are going to have to come up with a workaround, aren't we, in order to get that section of the porch in place. To do this, we're going to have to line up the corners of two foundations. Right there. You're going to align those two corners, and I'm not going to lie, it's going to take a while. You're going to have patience, and we all know you have the patience to do it. Like having the patience to wait for the Halloween event to start already. No rush, Bethesda. And eventually you'll get it. And then there we go. There is the foundation as close as it can get to the side of the building. Those two foundations that I placed are going to form the porch for this building. But for right now, we're going to slap down all of these walls that form the exterior of the cabin. We're going to double wall the majority of them. Then we're going to put the cladding on the underside so that the bottom half of the foundations are covered. Once we get that done, we're going to put these gabled roofs up and we're going to burn them, then cover them up eventually with the angled roofs, like we did in a previous video. These porch pieces are perfect to slap on the side of your building if you need to burn the roof, because they're at the exact height as your walls. So you'll have no problem. You won't have to try to figure out how to stack a bunch of things to get the flamethrower up high enough to burn your roof. It'll just work like this game is supposed to. Now I'm using 2 junk fences to make a narrow foyer. That'll be the first thing you see as you enter the cabin. I'm going to use the extra space behind this junk fence to make a closet. In order to get that space, you're going to have to move this junk fence up to the center line so that you have enough room to get into the house and enough room for what you want to build in the room just behind that junk fence. I've lined up a second junk fence to make a corner, and I'm burning both. And that wall will be the doorway once everything is burned to your closet for the back room. We're going to adjust all the walls now so that we have the exterior that we want and the interior that we want. This is all personal choice. You could pick a different wall set for your creepy cabin in the woods. I'm using wood in the corrugated metal walls because they do a pretty good job making a decrepit looking cabin. Now we're going to place our final wall in this cabin and move on to the porch. Now I left this log cabin porch here, but you could use use a regular foundation and some walls to extend the porch out this way. You don't have to use the log cabin porch. I'm gonna make my full wood walls, put the flat roof on, and then burn these walls to get our porch. And there's the porch. Now let's get to closing off the rest of these walls, either with windows or solid walls, or a combination of solid walls and windows, so that there's only one exit out of this cabin. The front door, of course. And this is the current state of cabin number 1. Now I've done all of the walls, the porch, all of the stuff that's gonna stay here. This is the last you're gonna see of it, because we're gonna move on to cabin number 2. I have already placed 4 foundations here. Now this cabin has less interior space than the first because it's right up against this pre-existing structure. However, one of the 4 foundations can actually clip underneath the building, and it's the one where I'm going to place the bedroom. I am going to burn this wall and place it with a junk fence so that I can add a little bit more texture to the outside of the wall there, and it'll look like at one point it was still part of the porch. So this is what cabin number 2 looks like so far. It's looking good. Doesn't look out of place. Now there's a gap between this rooftop and the existing shack cabin that I'm going to patch up with these display boards. It's not easy. It's another example of being patient while you're attempting to make something look like junk on purpose, like in this case, because we don't want them to line up perfectly. We want them kind of a bit wonky and a little out of place, because it's supposed to look like somebody attempted to patch up this roof with whatever was at hand, like pegboard that has holes in it. But hey, you use what is available to you. And there it is. Now on to customizing the walls. We're going to double wall this cabin. We're going to flip it to a corrugated metal walls so that we can actually double wall. Remove these foundations because we don't need them. And now we're going to put a stairway right there. Step up and place these fences, these stock fences, up against the poles, and eventually they will beautifully merge so that they look like they are part of the poles. We'll get the second one on there, and it of course will not perfectly merge. It's gonna have a lovely little gap right there, but with some minor tweaking we'll get it in line with the other fence and it'll look great. We just apparently need to flip it around the other way and then place it up against the poles, and it will sit beautifully and look like it's a part of the other fence. See? Perfectly lined up. Now let's add a wall so that we can close off this cabin eventually, and we will go and take a look at it from the outside so we can see where we are on this build. And see, it's looking more like a cabin, kind of, attached to this broken shell of a structure that people seem to be sleeping in. We're going to change these walls out quickly. Then we're going to place our junk wall right up against that existing fence. Now all that's left is to add this solar panel and attach a power conduit to the structure so that we can power any lights that are inside. Because this cabin out of the 2 is really simple to put together. It's not as elaborate as the first cabin that you saw. I'm going to adjust these power conduits because I don't want this much wire dangling. And once we get rid of this power conduit, we're going to see the completed build. And this is cabin number 1 now. You'll remember we left it undecorated, but now it's completely decorated. It's very warm and inviting from the exterior, isn't it? But we're not going to take a look at this one first. This is the second one we'll look at. The first one we'll look at is cabin number 2, the one we just finished. And you can see it's also decorated. And it's a bit shabby, a bit run down, but it's still got its charms. So let's go take a look inside, shall we? Look at these delightful jack-o'-lanterns and all this other stuff here. This, it's welcoming you in. This is, somebody's house. they've decorated for the holidays, clearly, and it's a small interior. It's well taken care of. It's got its decorations. You can see a little skull peeking in over there. We're going to walk around past the TV. And we're going to take a look at the bedroom, which is, shabby, just like the rest of the building, but it has its little Mothman area all its own. Now, we're going to take a look at cabin number 2, and we're going to look out the window first by drawing the curtain to look at our neighbor, who has always been a little suspicious. Let's pull that once again and continue on out to the second cabin. We're going to head through this dark and shadowy forest past this tent with a convenient light. And we're going to go through this garden area that is a little weird. It has a strange little gnome and a dead body in the plot. And then we have this lovely cabin, the first cabin. And it's got stuff on its porch, a weapons bench, scrap in a stash box, even a vendor. Nothing untoward could be in this cabin. Go inside, and as you can see, it's quite cluttered in this interior, in this foyer. And we have a kitchen with a skull in a bowl and some animals hanging from the wall and a skull on the shelf. And a table. That table's normal. There's a doorway to the room with very curious lighting and mask on the wall and sheep squatch poster and a shocked pumpkin. I'm gonna close this door and take a look at the rest of the place. Oh, there's a ghost. And what's behind this door? Oh no! Oh, what a curious closet. Anyways, that's cabin number 2. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I enjoyed making this build, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope you liked both of them and you were inspired to create your own creepy cabins in the woods or, in other spots in the wasteland. If you like what you see here, then click on that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you're aware when new videos release. But until next time, happy building in the wasteland.